Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to design a fully responsive chat component from scratch. Don't forget to subscribe. And now, let's start. If you've ever designed a responsive component in Figma before, you know it's essential to ensure that all its elements are aligned and resized properly, regardless of the device it's viewed on. So let's dive in and create a super nice and responsive chat component. Before we start, let's outline our needs. We're looking for a chat component that can handle different numbers of messages, shown as chat bubbles. Each chat bubble should have two variants to indicate whether it's our own message or a message from our chat partner. Additionally, the bubble should resize automatically based on the width of the container, ensuring compatibility across all devices. If a message is too long for one line, the bubble should resize vertically, and all bubbles should auto-align regardless of their height. Finally, we want to have variants for different settings for all the things we might need to do, so we don't have to keep going into the component's details. Alright, we've defined all requirements and now let's get to work. Let's start by creating the chat bubble. All we need to do is add a text box and set its sizing property to auto width. This means the bubble will expand or shrink depending on the amount of text inside. We need to put the text into a box, and because the width should be flexible, we wrap it into an auto layout. To style the bubble, we choose a color for the auto layout container and apply rounded corners to it. On top of the message, we want to have the name of the sender. So let's make a copy of the message text box and then adjust the text, the font size, and the color as required. We've also observed that both texts are automatically aligned, and this happens because they are placed inside an auto layout container, which we created just before. We still have two things to adjust. First, we should move the name to the left side. To do this, we'll change the auto layout alignment to top left. And second, we need to reduce the space between the lines. Let's also add the comma and the time. We can do this by making another copy, but this time from the name text field. Since we want the name, comma, and date to appear in a single line, we should group these text fields within another auto layout container and set the alignment to horizontal. Let's also reduce the gap between elements to 0 and add a small space after the comma. We can do this by setting the width of the comma text field to 5 pixels. To integrate more personality into our chat bubble, let's include a small avatar alongside the text. We achieve this by positioning the avatar next to the bubble and enclosing both within another auto layout container. Figma recognizes that these elements are side by side and automatically sets the auto layout to horizontal. We can still tweak the distance between the bubble and the avatar based on what we like. Alright. Once we're done with our bubble, we'll name it Chat Bubble and turn it into a component. Let's make a short summary. We arrange all of these elements by putting them inside several auto layout containers. A vertical auto layout to divide the bubble into 2 lines, the horizontal auto layout on the upper line for arranging the name, comma, and time, and finally, we put the avatar and the bubble inside another horizontal auto layout container. I know, using multiple auto layout containers inside each other can be tricky, but it helps us create very smart and flexible components, so I highly recommend to master this technique. Based on our requirements, the bubble should have 2 variants to indicate whether it's our own message or a message from our chat partner. We achieve this by adding a variant property to our component, and we call it sender. Let's assume that the blue bubble is the user's own chat bubble, so for this one, we set the value of sender to me. Now we need to make a chat bubble for our chat partner's messages. To do this, we'll create a new variant. We replace the avatar and move it to the right. And we change the colors to make the other chat messages more distinct. We also need to rename this variant. Since it represents the other user's messages, let's simply call it the other. To make it simple to change the message text without clicking inside the nested parts of the component, we'll add a text property called message and link this property to the text field containing the message. We'll also add text properties for the name and the date. There is one more thing we need to apply. As you've seen before, our chat bubbles are resizing, but only within a specified range. This happens because I've specified a minimum and maximum width, so that the bubbles don't get too large or too small. To make it work, I apply the min and max values to the bubble and to the message text field. And since the bubble has a padding, for the text field I choose value smaller by 20 pixels. Now let's put our bubble to the test and see how it performs in practice. Resizing seems to work, also within the specified range. And modifying the sender and the date by using the properties we've defined before is super easy. Alright, now let's prototype a complete conversation. We're adding a couple of bubbles into another auto layout and set the horizontal resizing of each bubble to fill. This will resize all chat bubbles automatically every time we resize the chat. And look, our minimum and maximum width restriction is doing exactly what it's supposed to. Now we clip the content and activate vertical scrolling to be able to scroll the messages when the conversation gets longer. We also adjust the vertical alignment to bottom because we want the conversation to grow from the bottom up. We still need a text field for the message and an icon to send it, so we include both in our design. Now we wrap all to a frame and add some padding, background color and rounded corners. We also adjust the resizing constraints, so that the message text field and the icon stay at the bottom, and the list with the messages takes all the available vertical space. Finally, we convert the frame to a component and name it chat. To mimic a conversation, we need two scenarios. One where we send a message by clicking the send icon, and the other where the other person sends a message. To achieve this, we'll utilize the on-click and after-delay interactions available in Figma. We take the final step by adding multiple variants to our chat component, where each variant represents a single step of the entire conversation. In the first step, our chat is empty, and we want to send the first message. To achieve this, we add a click event to the icon, mimicking the action of sending a message. To make the transition smooth, we select Smart Animate and set the duration to 300 milliseconds. In the subsequent step, we show our sent message and we introduce a delay event. We set the time to 3000 milliseconds. That means that after a delay of 3 seconds, this event brings us to the next step. And in the next step, we show that the user is typing by adding a typing animation to the auto layout container. From here on, we add another after delay event, transitioning us to step number 4 with the incoming message from the other user. And at this stage, we wait for another click on the send icon. By repeating this sequence a couple of times, we can create a really nice simulation. I think now we're done. We've built a super nice and responsive chat component in less than 10 minutes. Spending time to create smart components early on can save a lot of time later in the project. So make sure you're building your components like we've just learned. Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, remember to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Until next time, take care and stay creative.